Hey everyone, welcome to today's live stream. If you're joining us here live, leave a comment in the chat and say hi so we know you're here. So today I am going to be interviewing author, mom, and entrepreneur Elizabeth Duivenvoorde. So Elizabeth is here to talk with us about her new book, The Vampires Fall, which comes out October 5th. And it is a new adult dark fantasy, so perfect for the fall time. Elizabeth, do you want to get started and tell us maybe a little bit about your story and what it's about, a brief synopsis?
Yeah, so I have the book right here. This is The Vampire's Fall. It's about 300 and something pages. It's a dark fantasy with some romantic subplots. I'm not very good at like talking about my stories, so it might come off a little awkward, but pretty much it's about these two vampire princesses and this werewolf slave, and there's like this upcoming war, and again, I'm not good at like doing these things. One of the vampire princesses is blind, and she's kind of getting into an arranged marriage with another kingdom, which is the like werewolf kingdom. And so there's an arranged marriage, and then there's also the other vampire princess is like, she kind of is in the middle of an arranged marriage too, but she kind of gets to pick who she wants to marry and stuff. So there's like some romantic subplots, and there's like a slave camp that is like a target, and like, yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of stuff that kind of happens in the book. But yeah, so it's dark fantasy, romantic subplots, 3 main characters. It's all in first person, but like has 3 different POVs. So like each chapter is in one of their perspectives. And yeah.
Wow, that sounds cool. I love vampire stories, so I'm super excited about it.
It actually has more than just vampires. It has vampires, fairies, werewolves, zombies. There's mention of mermaids, but they won't come till like later in the series. And yeah, there's like just a whole bunch of different kinds of monsters, but like 2 of the main characters are vampires, so I guess it's technically a vampire story.
Okay, cool. Well, that's cool. A whole group of different mythical creatures. I love it. So what inspired the story, and how did you come up with the idea?
Ooh, it's kind of a long story, but pretty much when I was in high school, which was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, I came up with a story, and it was about this vampire who was like orphaned as a baby, and this like orphanage lady took care of her, and then she retired from the orphanage and like married some farmer guy, and then so like they raised this little vampire child together, and she like fed off of like cow blood and stuff, and then found out she was a princess at some point. And that's kind of like the roots of the story. The story has gone so far away from that, like it has nothing to do with the original anymore. I actually called that Farming Blood, but like it had no plot or anything. Like it was just like an idea, and like the story has just moved on so far from that like comparing the 2 is just, you can't. There's probably the only thing that's still the same is that my vampires are like vegetarian, so it's custom for them to feed off of animals instead of humans. But one of my main characters, the one princess, she's addicted to human blood, and that's kind of like an irregularity kind of thing. That's something that doesn't normally happen. But yeah, so that's kind of where the story came from.
Cool. Yeah. So, talking about, vampires and wolves and all these mythical creatures got me thinking about, some movies and shows with vampires and wolves and all these creatures. So what you know do you have a favorite show or movie that has these paranormal creatures that kind of helped inspire some ideas?
I want to say Underworld, just because like I feel like that's where I got a lot of kind of themes and also inspiration and stuff from. I used to watch it a lot with my grandpa growing up, so that was like one of my go-to movies whenever I went over to his house. Just like little 5-year-old Liz sitting on his lap watching vampires and werewolves kill each other. Um, but yeah, I would say that's probably like my most nostalgic favorite movie of like vampires and lichens or werewolves and that kind of stuff. I don't think there's any more recent ones that I can think of off like the top of my head that I'm a fan of, but there's probably some out there that are like amazing.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because when you were sharing what your story was about, the first thing that did come to mind was Underworld. So I can see that.
Yeah, I've had so personally I describe it as like Underworld meets Game of Thrones just because there's like death and sex in it. Um and I've actually had people say to me that it's kind of like those two things meeting, and I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. It's good that I was like that I hit the mark on what I was kind of aiming for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, what I guess what made you decide to write a new adult vampire story? Because I know you've written in several different genres and age categories. So,
Yeah.
what made you try this one?
Um, I think originally it was going to be young adult because that's kind of where I started. That's where Red's Heart, which is like another story I wrote about, like it's a retelling of Red Riding Hood. That's where I started with that. Was like it was young adult, and I have a whole bunch of more young adult story ideas. But as I was writing it, it felt a bit too mature for a young adult. I felt like, especially because there's like the sex scenes and everything, I'm like, well, I should probably bump this up to new adult or adult. And adult felt just like too broad, I guess, or like too big of a genre, and I wasn't quite comfortable with jumping straight into the adult pool. I wanted something kind of still like maybe college level readers, and then I found out that new adult existed, and I was like, oh, okay, well, new adult it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Um, so what has been your process like for writing the story? Are you more of a plotter, a pantser, in between?
I would be in between. So like I've been I have like a board right here in front of me with some plot points. Pretty much I know what has to happen, and I pretty much just write everything down on like little cue cards, and I put them up on my bulletin board, and just that way I know kind of where I'm going and I don't get all mixed up, and I'm not at one point being like, oh, did I already do this scene? Did I not? So it just kind of keeps me organized. But all this stuff like in between the scenes and all the stuff that happens in the scenes and the character growth and stuff, that's all more like pantsed. So I would say I'm kind of a plantser. Yeah.
Okay.
And for the process of writing, do you mean like just that, like just the pantser, planter, plotter thing? Or do you mean like from start to finish, what has like the journey been like? Or do you have a different question for that?
Well, no, kind of both, like the plotter pantser thing, but also, what was the journey like writing the story?
So I started this story, like not counting the whole farming blood thing. I think it's been about 7 years actually, because I'm pretty sure, no, 6 years, because I started it around the same time that I joined a writing group in my like local writing group, which was just after my second son was born, and he's 6 now. So it's about a 6-year-old process now. And so I had been writing it for about a year. And then my oldest son had to go in for heart surgery because he has a heart defect. And so he went in for his third surgery. And I took like a 3-year break from writing in general. Like I didn't write anything for 3 years. And then last year I started writing again. I don't know if my math adds up for that, but this would be the 6th year, I think. But yeah, so then last year I finished writing because I think I got about exactly halfway. I took the 3-year break and then I wrote the other half because I just wanted to get it done so I could move on to like other things. So I wrote it and then I've pretty much just been doing developmental edits and like sending it to people to read over, beta readers, critique partners, all that. I'm undergoing my last round of developmental edits, and then next month it's going to go to a copy editor, and then I'll have another month, and then line editor, then I think a couple weeks or another month or something, and then proofreader, and then it's going to be going out for publication. The editing process, I didn't give myself a lot of time with. I was like, I need to get this done. It needs to go because no matter what, I'm going to procrastinate to the last possible minute. So if I give myself too big of a timeline, it's just not going to get done until it's too late anyways. So I was like, okay, we got to go bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this always happens to me. I have a question. I have another question in mind, and then midway through, I forget my question. Always happens to me. So let's go to, so with your story, did you do any type of research for it? And if so, like what was something you learned that was really interesting?
I don't think I did any research. It was more just I took things that I liked and didn't use things I disliked just from like other literature. So like things about vampires, like they break out from holy water. Like that's one of their main weaknesses in my story is holy water for vampires and sunlight. But then I also added in like there's this magic necklace that one of the princesses wear that like if you put the blood in it from your most recent feed, you're resistant to the sun. So I kind of like wanted to play around a bit with that kind of stuff. I knew that I already knew that werewolves were like kind of allergic or whatever to silver. So I used that, and I knew that fairies were the same, allergic to iron, but I changed that to silver as well. That way they had kind of a similar weakness. That way I could use it in my story more easily. I let the fairies have retractable wings because in some literature they do, and in others they're just like permanently out. Zombies are zombies. There wasn't much I really did with the zombies. Yeah, I don't think I really did much research apart from just my usual reading dark fantasy and watching horror movies and paranormal movies and stuff. So
okay, cool. So then when creating your characters, how do you approach creating your characters?
it's a good question because I have no idea. They pretty much just create themselves. Like I don't know, I find naming them would be the most difficult thing because like I know what they look like and how they act like as soon as I come up with the character and I'm like, okay, now I just have to name them. Some of them the names like come easily to me, other ones I have to like go to name generators and like especially so I wanted my main characters' names to have like a very paranormally feel. And so like my one princess I named Calisora, and the other one's Acantha, and then my werewolf is Farron, and then like there's another vampire in the story whose name is like Liam. And at that point, I just gave up with names. I'm like, yeah, you're Liam.
That's actually funny because I have half demon, half witch in my story named Liam. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So uh Again. Oh, heavens. So who's your favorite character right in this book or series? Who was your favorite and why?
I want to say that Calisora was my favorite just because she's so like badass in the book, but I think it would have to be Acantha just because so she's the more like gentle of the sisters, and I know what their story arcs are already, like what their overall arcs are throughout the whole series. So personally, she's more my favorite. Um, yeah, probably have to go with her.
And she's one of
Yeah,
the
she's one of the vampire princesses. They both are.
okay.
Yeah.
So they're both the protagonists, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then speaking kind of characters and like protagonists and antagonist villains and stuff, um, what I guess what type of characters are your favorite to write normally?
Ugh. See, my instinct there was to say zombies just because like you can make them look so gross and like the way they move and stuff and bones cracking and it's like ugh gross and I love it. But then like my secondary would be I think the vampires just because like there's like the sexiness and like they're still like they'll bite your throat out and stuff. So like I think one of those two probably would be my favorite. And then third would have to be the werewolves. Just because, like, I don't know. I've been reading a lot of werewolf kind of stories lately, and just like the purring and like how they nuzzle and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, it's so cute. It's like a puppy, but a person. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, so with all these magical creatures in your world, zombies, vampires, werewolves, all that, what's the magic system like? Did you create one on your own or kind of just like it's not really there, or like how does magic work?
Yeah. So the magic system, it's kind of like a low magic. Like, there's an enchanted mirror at one point. Like they use magic to make like creams and stuff because, like I said, the one vampire princess, which is Acantha, she is blind, and it's one of the plot stories, or yeah, one of the arcs in the story is like trying to heal her blindness, and nothing works. So at one point they're trying to use like magic and like a magic cream. So it's kind of like a low magic kind of world where like the magic is pretty much just used for convenience rather than like smiting your enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, we've hold on, let's see. Oh, we have in the comments, someone said, Prinkish said, you can make zombies sexy.
I saw that comment. That was like, oh my god. Could you imagine? I specifically put in the book at one point that zombies cannot reproduce, and even the thought of it made the character shudder. So, like, I cannot make a sexy zombie. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure someone out there will come up with the sexy zombie
Oh,
eventually.
probably. I don't doubt it.
Okay, so we talked about the fact that this is going to be a series, right? This is the first book. So do you know how long you're planning on making the series?
Yes. So right now it is 6 books. So there's a main trilogy, and then there's a prequel duology, and then like a kind of follow-up book. And that's like what order I'm gonna write them in is like the main trilogy, and then I'm gonna write the 2 prequels, and then the follow-up to the trilogy kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah,
Um,
ambitious.
yeah. Well, I was just going to say you've thought pretty far ahead. I usually can't think that far ahead in a
Yeah.
series, but since you have, um, can you tell us a little bit about what that process is like, mapping out the series and figuring out character arcs and plots and stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, um, again, I'm a plantser, so I don't like organize and plot out a lot of it. I pretty much have the main idea of what I want things to happen, and then I'll either put it down on my notes, or I started using what's it called, Campfire, to like kind of organize a bit of the story. Um, it Do you know what Campfire is?
I've heard of it. It's like a writing program, right?
Yeah, it's more of a storyboard kind of program. So like you can put in your character stuff, maps and magic systems, like all that stuff, and storylines and story arcs, and your relation. Like you can make family trees and stuff in it. It's really cool. I enjoy it. Yeah, so you can buy that like directly off their website, or if you have Steam, which is like a gaming thing, you can download it there as well. I forget how much it is, but you only have to pay once, and it's under. I think it's under $50. I think. Don't quote me on that. I think. Um, but yeah, I've been using that a bit. I used to use Padlet a lot, which is just like it, I don't know how to explain that either, but it's a website where
Okay.
you pretty much have like sticky notes on a board kind of thing, and you can add images and stuff like that and information. And but for that you have to pay like monthly if you want to have more than a certain number of Padlets. And my brain is like too full of stories, and I keep going over. So I'm slowly transitioning to Campfire. So yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. I went on a tangent.
That's okay. Happens to me sometimes too. Um, yeah. So, um, kind of since I had said before, this isn't your first um uh, what's the word, book or series. You've written in different genres, different age ranges, from children to young adult, now new adult.
Yep.
So what has been your favorite genre and age range to write for?
Um, so with children books, it's really like simplistic. Like obviously not too simplistic because your readers aren't dumb, even though they're children. Um, so like I find I like that because like it's simple and you just write like simple sentences. But at the same time, I like writing like like the really like evocative stuff that could be in like new adult, and young adult. So like I don't know. I like that side too. And so I think like the perfect middle ground would be middle grade. I'm right now working on a middle grade, and I'm really enjoying it. I I definitely have to restrain myself a bit from taking things a bit too far in some situations. I'm like, whoa, that got too dark, or oh, that got a bit too a little too sexy looking and stuff. I'm like, these are like 14-year-olds. Pull it back a bit, Liz. Um, but I think middle grade, I'm having a lot of fun right now with that. I think if you asked me this question like last year when I was finishing up The Vampire's Fall, I'd probably say new adult. So I feel like it's probably whatever genre or age range I'm writing in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. So this new project, the middle grade, did you just start it? Is there anything you can say about it?
So it's Haunted Days is what it's called. That's kind of like going to be the series title, not the like book title. Um, it's about this. I think she's actually 12, not 14, but so she's around that age, and she can see ghosts. And it's about so her mom passed away when she was 3. Her grandma just recently passed away, and she's been relocated to live with her aunt, who she didn't even know existed because her dad like walked out on them before she was even born, and so it's like her dad's sister, and so she has no other family on her mom's side and stuff. So she moves to this new town, and she makes all these friends and stuff. And there's this haunted house in the town, and so her aunt is a an event planner, so she's working at this haunted house to kind of get it, yeah, the haunted house to get it ready for Halloween, to like make it a haunted house as an exhibit kind of thing, as like a little event for the town and stuff. And Claire, which is the main character, she goes with her aunt and finds out that this supposedly haunted house is actually haunted, but it's not haunted by like one ghost, it's haunted by like a lot of ghosts. And the whole mystery, it's a mystery, and the whole mystery is trying to find out why. And like there's a ghost, all the ghosts tell her that they're like drawn in by this energy of this other ghost, and so she's trying to find out who the original ghost is and just stuff like that. So it deals with a lot of like, there's found family, there's so it's a mystery, found family. There's a little bit of romance, but obviously I'm not diving in too deep to that. It's gonna be a trilogy, and it's kind of gonna be like a drawn out kind of romance, like kind of an enemies to lovers almost. But yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of it without giving too much away. It's already written. I'm doing developmental edits right now as well. So like whenever the Vampires Fall goes in for edits, that's when I'm kind of chugging away at Haunted Days, and then I go back to the Vampires Fall. And then after the Vampires Fall comes out, I'm going to be kind of focusing on Haunted Days completely. It's being made into a comic book, or like not a comic book, like a graphic novel at the moment as well. So like as I get each chapter done, I'm sending it to like get over to my like comic artist. And then it's also going to be made into an animated TV show, which I briefly mentioned over on my YouTube channel on my I think it was on my most recent like monthly updates thing, because I started working on a casting call and stuff like that. Casting call isn't live yet, but working on it. So it's a pretty big project, and yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I can't wait to hear more about it. You had my ears perked at Haunted House. I love haunted house stories and enemies to lovers. So,
oh, who doesn't?
Yeah. So that sounds cool. So I wanna going back to your current book coming out in the fall, The Vampire Falls. I'm gonna put up, and you're welcome to hold it up as well if you want. I'm gonna put up the cover for you guys to see. And I just love this cover. I think it's just so gorgeous. And so I wanted to kind of ask, what was your process like working with a cover designer on this?
It was really fun. Again, over on my YouTube channel, I have a whole video just all about, pretty much it's just me glorifying my cover artist, honestly. But it's kind of just about like working with cover artists and stuff. And Evelyn, which is the cover artist who did this one, she is so amazing. I love her so much. So originally I had gone to a pre-made cover artist, like a artist who does mostly pre-made covers, and I got a different cover made. So this is actually the second cover I've had made for this book. And the first cover, it was kind of more like, have you ever read Fallen by, I think it's by like Kirsten White, or no,
Lauren Kate?
Lauren Kate, yes. Sorry, I read her book and something by the other one at the same time. But yes, so I wanted something kind of similar to that cover, and I did get something similar. And it was pretty much like, the model was like kind of looking over her shoulder at the camera, and like there was a castle in the background on a mountain and stuff. and I liked it, but at the same time, it felt too like young adult to me. I guess this kind of feels young adult too, but I like this one more. It's pretty. But like, I don't know. It didn't give me the right feels, and then I met my cover artist over on DeviantArt because she had posted a like image that she had put together, and it was Alice in Wonderland, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. And so I had her make me a cover for a story that I haven't even written yet. Like, I think I got the first 3 chapters drafted, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go do something else. Like, I have shiny project syndrome, like, so bad. But um, so then after that, she made 2 other covers for me, and then I think there was another 2, and then we started making this series. So I already have all the covers done, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, so I have all the covers done. I think I have the spine, like the full wraps of them, but like the back blurb and the spine width is obviously going to change. So I'll just pay like a small fee on top of what I already paid just to like adjust that. But yeah, she was so great. Like, so the first cover artist I had worked with, I kind of told them what I wanted, and then they made it for me. Whereas this, with Evelyn, I got the model and the castle in the background from, I think it was Shutterstock, and then everything else she did. So she provided like that archway and all the smoke and everything, and I like how it turned out. So I just kind of kept using her because she's amazing and I love her so much.
Yeah, I really like how it turned out too. You know, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but come on, we all do it. And this cover, I was like, I need this book.
Perfect.
So, that's kind of interesting, how you do that, how, like, you have, the covers made kind of from the get-go, from the beginning, before you finish writing the story. I'd be too nervous about doing the covers, from the get-go. 1, 'cause I never know what my title is gonna be, and, 2, I'm like, but I don't know, what if I never finish this? Because like you, I have shiny new project syndrome, so I'm like, I wanna do this now, and I wanna do this. Um, so do you find that, you know, having the covers made early, does that, like, help motivate you to finish and publish the story?
For me personally, yes. I wouldn't suggest it for other people just because I know that a lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that and you should wait till like closer to the end. So like I wouldn't suggest it for everybody, but for me it works. I definitely need some sort of like motivator, and I do the same thing with like character art. If I'm not sure when I'm going to write a story, I'll get some character art just to kind of like hold me over, because I also like throwing money at artists for some strange reason. I see their art and I'm like, here, take my money. But yeah, so a lot of the time, if I'm not sure when I'm going to get into a story or something, then I'll go and I'll get some character art done, just like a cheap headshot or something, just to kind of hold me over. And a lot of my books too, I plan on making into graphic novels at some point. And so doing that, it also gives me the chance to find an artist for like in the future for when I get to that point. I haven't done it with The Vampire's Fall yet. Oh no, I guess I kind of did, because like the book itself has art in it, like each section or part of the story. I think there's 13 illustrations throughout the whole thing, because I'm a sucker for art, and I figured I might as well put it in the book. But yeah, so like, one second, I'll see if the camera can pick it up. So I'm not going to show any of the big illustrations, but I'll show you here at the back.
Oh, cool.
I got like all the character art, like just some character headshots done. And then there's like, actually, yeah, I will show you one if I can find one of like the larger illustrations. Just give me a second. Da, 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 da.
I like that you have that in there. It helps, like, you picture the characters. Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's going to be like full page because there's kind of this annoying border around it. But yeah, I hope that I can get like the full bleed kind of off, and that would be really nice. It would look really good. But I don't know if I would use that artist though for like a graphic novel because I don't know if that's in their skill set. I would have to look more into that and talk to them about it. But yeah, so that's kind of like what I like to do is I'll like, if I know for sure that I'm going to get this story done, then I'll do like the covers. And especially if I'm already like halfway through writing it, that's normally when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to at some point finish this book. And then I get the cover and stuff done. And I think we normally estimate there's going to be like 200 pages, even though it's probably not going to be exactly that. And so she makes like a rough spine and stuff for me and stuff. Yeah.
So kind of going off of that, how do you manage with, you know, market trends to change and, you know, cover trends change? So when you get a cover early, do you ever worry that by the time you do finally publish the book, that the trend might change and it's no longer, it no longer stands out or does as well?
So for me, I don't really follow cover trends, especially ones that I don't like. Like I know right now young adult is going through like that illustrated cover trend, and I'm not really a big fan of it. So I don't intend on following that at all, ever. I don't know. I feel like I like the style that my cover artist has, and that's kind of what I want all my books to look like at some point, just all pretty and dolled up. I know that obviously I don't want them to stand out too much and not fit in with their genres, but at the same time, I don't care as much. I don't know. Like, if it looks pretty to me, then I'm sure other people will think it'll look pretty, and somebody's bound to buy a pretty cover, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so going back to kind of your writing process and everything, what is your writing routine like? What does it look like? Do you write every day, some days?
So I'm a mom of 3, right? So when I had my first son, like my first child, I wrote every day. When I had my second son, I wrote about every other day. And now that I have my daughter, writing is hard. I try and write every night. That doesn't work. I try and write most nights. That also doesn't work. It's pretty much like a hit and miss. Whenever I can find the time to wiggle it in, I will. Sorry, I thought one of my kids opened the door. But yeah, it's when you have 3 kids under the age of 10, it's a juggling act. And especially when it takes a little bit to get into the zone and stuff, it's definitely hard. Back in January, I joined a kind of writing boot camp thing, and we got up at like 6. I had to get up at 6 a.m., which I think for them it was like 11 or something, because they're over in Britain. Like they're across the sea from me. But so for me, it was like 6 a.m. and I did that for an entire month, like every single Tuesday, Thursday, and then they did it both on Saturdays and Sundays. And I would go to the 6 a.m. and then the 1 p.m. and I would go to every single thing. And I got through my entire book in a month, like doing my 1 round of developmental edits. And I was so burnt out in February. I just, oh my gosh, I felt like I was dying. But so I don't think I would be able to handle the like writing every day thing at this point anymore. Yeah, I want to say that I can write like every other night or something, or maybe for like an hour here or an hour there. But like right now, especially with COVID, and we're here in Ontario, we're in another lockdown. Hopefully we're coming out of it by Friday, which is I think tomorrow. But yeah, so right now it's kind of like all over the place.
Yeah. It's interesting because I actually just watched a YouTube video from Cami on her channel yesterday. It's an older video though, but it was talking about writing advice that people give and some advice that are just terrible. And one of the things she and Lauren were talking about was the fact that the whole write every day advice that a lot of writers get is kind of terrible, which I agree with. Because it's hard to write every day. It's hard to, one, find the time, especially depending on what stage of life you're in. You're a mom with 3 kids. It's hard to find the time sometimes. And two, it's just, you don't have the creative energy or creative juice to sit and actually write a story every day. And so I like what they had talked about and said how it's, a better goal would be to work every day, whether that's, researching for your book, outlining and plotting, whether it's editing, writing, marketing for your book, you know, doing something to further get you further along in your career. So work every day, but not necessarily write every day, which I like that advice much better.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that strongly.
So speaking of writing and everything, why did you want to be a writer, an author? What made you want to pursue this?
So originally in high school, I wanted to be a comic artist, or like I wanted to do drawing and stuff and like draw stories. But I ended up hurting my wrist at one point because I was dumb and punched a punching bag with like the wrong gloves on at my friend's house. And so like I had this little tear in my tendon in my wrist, so I can't draw for a long period of time. So I was like, oh, well, there goes my creative career. I'm doomed. I'm going to have to like get an office job or something. And then I took creative writing in grade 12 and I was like, oh, this is really fun. Like I could do this instead of drawing, and then I could just like hire people to draw it for me. And yeah, so that's pretty much where I got to. And yeah, so I wanted, at that point, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to do writing as like a pastime because I still have to like go to college and all that stuff. And then I had my first son like a semester into college, and I was like, who needs college? And then I was like, I'm just gonna be an author forever. And I just started writing, and I don't know, I enjoy it. I like expressing myself even if I suck at spelling and grammar sometimes. And that's what editors are for. So but yeah, so I think my end goal, which I know you didn't ask, but I'm going to say it anyways. My end goal would be like to be an author and like write my books and then have them turn into graphic novels, and then have some of them maybe turned into like animated movies or TV shows, and kind of go down that path and just like produce everything myself. And yeah, so I'm pretty much already starting that. I've already been doing that for a while. I've written a couple of short comics, like I think there's 6 pages, and oh my gosh, they're so just so expensive. It's crazy expensive to hire like comic artists and like those kind of illustrators. Like, oh, you don't realize how much money you throw into it until you're done at like the end of the day. Because like if every page is $40, then like at the end of it, you're like, oh my god, I spent like $300 or something for just a few pages.
Yeah,
It's worth it though. Like especially for some people, if you get like sample art done, like get a headshot or something done before you dive into the comic thing, oh my gosh, it's definitely, I find it rewarding because I like staring at art all day. So I have like folders upon folders upon folders of just like commissioned art. And if I'm in a bad mood, I'll just sit there and stare at things that I've gotten commissioned. And I'm like, I paid for this. This is my character.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to pick yourself up, a good pickup.
Yeah.
So, so going along with that, we talked about why you wanted to be an author and stuff. Why did you choose to self-publish instead of traditionally publish?
So originally, I didn't even know about self-publishing when I started querying, which was like first draft. Like I was sending out first draft of this book to poor agents who had to read it. I think it was only 4 agents, but still, these poor agents had to read the first draft of like the first whatever many chapters I sent them. And I don't know, I got all 4 rejections, and I was like, okay, and stuff. Like I did care, but I didn't. Like I wasn't like mortally wounded, like my heart didn't break, but at the same time I was like, oh, they don't want my story, oh well. And so I was debating on giving up on it, and then I was like, oh well, maybe I'll just like finish writing it and then like print it at Staples or something and just hand it out to like family. And now that I think about that, I'm like, oh, that would be so cringy. But there was a point when I learned about self-publishing, which I think was, I don't even know when, but I was like, oh, well, maybe I can do this. And then I got a cover made, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm doing self-publishing. And I've just kind of stuck with that. And just thinking about doing traditional publishing now, it's intriguing, but at the same time, I don't think I would be willing to give up all of that creative control that I so much love, like picking the cover, picking the title, and just everything. Like doing self-publishing, you have so much control. And now that I've like basked in that, and even though it was only like a couple books, I'm loving it. And even though it's expensive, I would rather have all of my copyrights and be able to do whatever the hell I want with my stuff, opposed to like not having that control.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another rant, just totally off topic. Don't know if I answered your question, but
no, it doesn't. I totally get it. Kind of, went through the self-published for the same reason. I wanted to be able to have control over everything. So, we have someone else joining us. Hi, Laddie. We are actually talking about Liz's new book, The Fire Falls, and it comes out on October 5th. So that is what we're talking about. And we're actually kind of wrapping up. We're wrapping up this interview pretty soon. But I did have a couple more questions that I wanted to ask you, Liz. One question I wanted to ask was, what has been the best writing advice you think you've got?
Oh, it's so hard. Like, oh, I don't even know. Honestly, I think it was just having someone. So when I first started writing, I was in kind of a really low place. Like my son had a heart defect, and like everything was really gray and like crappy. And I just, for the first few years after deciding I wanted to be a full-time author and that I wanted to write books and stuff, I had people telling me, oh, it's not worth it. You're not going to make money. And I'm like, I don't care if I make money. I want to create like worlds and write stories. And I think it was a few weeks into the new writing group that I had started attending. And one of the people, his name was Bruce. I still talk to him. And I doubt he's watching, but Bruce, if you're here, hi. But he like took me aside and was like, "You have so much potential, and you're doing so great. Keep going." And like it just hit me in my heart that this total stranger was encouraging me. Like David, my now husband, then boyfriend, he was encouraging me, but my parents weren't, and like everyone was kind of like, whenever the topic came up, it felt like his family was supporting me, but then mine was like, oh, that's not a good idea. And like obviously there were some people who supported me even on my family, but like it felt like just everybody was against me. And so then when this one random stranger who had read the first chapter of one like rough piece of work I read that I written was like, you can do this, just keep going, like that, it lifted me up a lot. Which I know it's not really like this big thing, like this big inspirational advice or anything. It's just it hit me really hard, and that's I think what kept me going, because there was obviously points where I was just like, there's no point, like I'm crap, I don't think I'll be able to do this, and then like I would think back to that and I'd be like, I got this.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said for, just having that encouragement given to you. I think that's pretty powerful. For myself as well, it's one of the things that keeps me going sometimes as well. I'm in a writing group called Ninja Writers, and so in there we get to share a little bit of our stories and get feedback from the writers in the group. And every time I share a part of my story, I always get these great feedback. Like, oh, I got so sucked in, I didn't want you to stop reading, I want to know more. And that just helps motivate me to keep going. So I think having that encouragement is always a great thing to have. And he said, cover is so beautiful, which totally agree. I love
I agree. Yeah. Thank you. I definitely agree with that too. I love the cover so much.
So my last question for today, before we kind of wrap up, is what advice would you give for writers?
Keep going. You got this. Shoot for the stars. That's
yeah, great advice.
Thank you.
So, so for anyone watching, let me pull this up one more time. So for anyone watching, this is a new book, comes out October 5th. And you can actually pre-order it right now. So I do have the pre-order link down in the description below. So definitely go click on that and get the pre-order. And I have all of Liz's links down below as well. So if you want to go follow her on social media or check out her website, all of those links will be in the description box below. So, so I think that is it. I don't have any more comments. Oh, actually, one more. I can't wait for the booklets. I'm late, but this was fun. Love you. This was great. Thank you for coming here and doing this interview with me. I had a lot of fun. I love learning more about your writing and your books and your new middle grade project you've got going on. So I'm definitely excited for all of it.
Thank you for having me. I don't know if you can hear, but one of my children are knocking and are very impatient. So yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all the questions. And yeah, I'm very excited about this book and the next project coming up too. Hopefully we can get together soon and talk about more stuff.
Yes, we'll love to do that.
I love talking about
Alright.
books, so.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us, everyone who's in the chat. Again, all links are below for you guys to check out. And we will see you guys some other time. Bye.
Bye.